The moment she said yes, my world collapsed. It all began with a moment that I thought would change my life forever. You know those times when your heart races so fast that you can hear it in your ears, when everything around you seems to blur except for the one person standing in front of you? That was me. I had waited for this day, planned it in my mind 100 times, and imagined how it would feel when she finally gave me her answer. And then, it happened. She looked at me, smiled softly, and said the one word I had been longing to hear. Yes. For a second, it felt like the world stopped spinning. The lights seemed brighter, the air felt lighter, and my chest was filled with a rush of happiness I can't even describe. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the moment every dream I carried in my heart would finally come true. She was not just anyone. She was my best friend, my safe place, the person who made ordinary days feel magical. Hearing her say yes should have been the beginning of our perfect story. But sometimes life doesn't play out the way we imagine. As her words echoed in my head, something inside me shifted. It wasn't the fairy tale I expected. It wasn't the ending I thought I was writing. In that very moment, when I should have been celebrating, I felt something break deep within me. I couldn't understand why my joy was mixing with fear, why my smile was hiding questions I wasn't ready to face. And that's where my story really begins. The moment she said yes and my world unexpectedly collapsed. What happened next, I could have never prepared for. I still remember the first time I met her. It wasn't one of those dramatic movie moments. It was simple, almost ordinary. She was sitting at the back of the classroom, lost in her notebook, her hair falling over her face as she scribbled something down. I don't know what pulled me toward her that day, but from that moment on, it felt like she had a place in my story. Over time, we became friends. Not just casual friends, but the kind of friends who know each other's secrets, who talk about dreams at midnight, and who can sit in silence without it feeling awkward. She became the person I could not imagine my days without. Somewhere in that friendship, my feelings grew into something deeper. I tried to hide it at first, afraid of ruining what we had, afraid that she wouldn't feel the same. But love has a way of spilling through the cracks. Every laugh we shared, every long walk home, every time she looked at me like I mattered, it made it harder to keep my heart quiet. That's when I knew I had to tell her, no matter what the risk. When I finally confessed my feelings, I expected hesitation, maybe even rejection. But instead, she smiled with those familiar eyes and said yes. It should have been everything I ever wanted. Yet, even in that instant of joy, there was something different in her voice, something unsteady in the way she looked at me. It wasn't the kind of yes I had imagined in my dreams. It felt more like a door opening into a room I didn't understand, a room filled with shadows and secrets. In the days that followed, small things started to feel strange. She was there, yet distant. Her messages were shorter, her calls less frequent. When we met, she avoided certain questions, brushed aside topics we once talked about for hours. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that maybe she was just busy, maybe it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The more I tried to get closer, the more it felt like she was slipping away. That yes was supposed to bring us together, but instead, it left me with more questions than answers. Why did she agree if her heart wasn't in it? What was she hiding behind that smile? And why did it feel like the very moment I thought I had won her love was the moment I was about to lose everything? The harder I tried to hold on, the more I began to notice the cracks. Her laughter, once so effortless, now sounded rehearsed, as if she was forcing herself to play a part. When I asked if everything was okay, she brushed it off with a quick smile and a change of subject. I told myself I was overthinking, but deep inside, I knew the truth was hiding somewhere between her words and her silences. One evening, as we walked together, I noticed how she avoided meeting my eyes. She kept glancing at her phone, typing quickly, then slipping it back into her pocket before I could say anything. It wasn't jealousy that gripped me, it was confusion. Why would someone say yes if they weren't truly there? Why would she step into something if her heart wasn't ready? These questions began to haunt me more than her distance itself. Friends around us started to notice the shift too. They'd ask me if we were okay, if she was happy, and I never knew how to answer. I didn't want to admit that the yes I had dreamed about was beginning to feel like a mistake. At night, I would replay our conversations in my head, searching for signs I might have missed. Was there a moment she tried to tell me something, but I wasn't listening? Was her acceptance of my love really a choice she made freely, or was it just easier for her to agree than to break my heart? The conflict was no longer just between us, it was inside me too. Part of me wanted to fight for her, to believe that love could overcome whatever walls stood between us. But another part of me feared that by holding on, I was only pulling her further away. I could see the weight in her eyes, something unspoken that she carried alone. Yet every time I asked, she shook her head as if there was nothing to explain. What unsettled me the most was the feeling that there was more to her silence than doubt. It wasn't just hesitation. It was as though she was protecting me from something I wasn't ready to hear. And while I stood there, desperate for answers, she continued to smile, that same practice smile, leaving me trapped in a story where the yes I had waited for might not be the blessing I thought it was. The nights grew heavier as I searched for answers I couldn't find. I would stare at the ceiling, replaying her voice in my mind, the way she had said yes, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That single word, once the symbol of everything I had ever wanted, now felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Every day after, her presence became more distant, her warmth replaced by a coldness she tried to hide. The silence between us was louder than any fight we could have had. I started to notice things that never mattered before. She would take calls in another room, whispering as though the walls might betray her. Her phone was always close, guarded, as if it carried secrets I wasn't meant to see. Sometimes, when I caught her staring at me, her expression was unreadable, not love, not hate, but something far more complicated. I wanted to ask, to push her for the truth, but fear kept me quiet. I was afraid of the answer, afraid that once I heard it, nothing would ever be the same. The world around me didn't slow down while mine was unraveling. Friends laughed, families moved on. Life continued, but I was stuck in that one moment, the moment she said yes. I carried it everywhere like a weight, pretending to be fine while inside I was breaking apart. Every time she pulled away, I told myself tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she would explain. Tomorrow she would come back. But tomorrow never changed. The turning point came on a rainy evening, the kind of night when the streets glisten with reflections and the air feels heavy with unspoken things. We were sitting together, but it felt like miles separated us. I couldn't take the silence anymore. My voice shook as I asked her, "Why does it feel like you're not really here with me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down, her fingers tightening around the edge of her sweater. That silence, that pause, was louder than any words she could have spoken. Her eyes finally met mine, and for the first time, I saw the truth flicker there. Fear, guilt, and something that looked like sorrow. It was the look of someone who carried a secret too heavy to share, a secret that had been eating away at her long before she said yes. My heart pounded as I waited, every second stretching into eternity. The room seemed smaller, the air thinner, like we were both suffocating in the weight of what hadn't been said. I leaned closer, desperate, whispering, "Please, just tell me what's going on." She opened her mouth as if to speak, then stopped, biting her lip, her eyes shimmering with tears she refused to let fall. That hesitation shattered me more than any confession could have. Because in that moment I knew, whatever truth she was hiding was about to change everything between us. The storm outside raged louder, thunder rolling through the night, but it was nothing compared to the storm building inside me. Every instinct told me I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't control. The story I thought I was writing with her was twisting into something darker, heavier. And just as she finally drew in a shaky breath, ready to say the words I had been dreading, I realized my world was about to collapse in a way I had never imagined. Her breath trembled in the silence, and I braced myself for whatever she was about to reveal. My chest tightened as I waited, the the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. She finally whispered, almost too softly to hear, "There's something I should have told you before I said yes." My heart froze. It wasn't just the words, it was the way her voice cracked, the way her hands shook as though even speaking the truth would break her apart. I leaned closer, urging her on, desperate to know. But before she could continue, her phone lit up on the table. A name flashed across the screen, and in that instant, everything shifted. She froze, her face draining of color. I had never seen that look on her before. Fear mixed with guilt so raw it was impossible to ignore. She grabbed the phone quickly, turning it over, as though hiding it could erase what I had just seen. I didn't ask right away, but the silence between us screamed louder than any words. That one call, that one name, raised questions I wasn't ready to face. Who was it? Why did she react like that? And why did it feel like the yes she gave me was tied to something much bigger than just us? In the days that followed, her behavior grew more erratic. Sometimes she was present, almost convincing me everything was normal. Other times, she was distant, her eyes clouded with something she refused to share. Every unanswered question pushed me deeper into doubt, and the love I had once been so sure of began to feel like a fragile thread ready to snap. The second twist came not with her words, but with what I discovered by accident. I was walking past the cafe we often visited when I saw her inside, sitting across from someone I didn't recognize. The way she leaned forward, speaking with intensity, the way her hands moved nervously. It wasn't casual. It wasn't friendly. It was secretive, like a conversation meant to stay hidden. My instinct told me not to go in, not to interrupt, but instead I stood frozen outside, watching from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest. When she noticed me through the glass, her reaction wasn't relief or happiness. It was shock. Pure, unfiltered shock, as if she had been caught in the middle of something she never wanted me to see. She quickly gathered her things, muttering something to the person across from her, and rushed outside. Her smile was forced, her words hurried. "It's not what it looks like." But the tremor in her voice told me otherwise. That moment shifted everything. The stakes weren't just about whether she truly loved me anymore. It was about what else she was keeping from me. The questions multiplied. Was there another side to her life I didn't know about? Was her yes a way of buying time, of keeping me close while something else played out in the background? As the rain started to fall again that evening, I realized I was no longer just fighting for love. I was standing at the edge of a secret that could either explain everything or destroy what little we still had. And as she looked at me with eyes full of fear and mystery, I knew the truth she was hiding was bigger than anything I had imagined. The story wasn't close to ending, it was only getting darker, and I was trapped right at the center of it. Her words kept echoing in my mind. It's not what it looks like. But deep down, I knew that sooner or later, I needed the truth. That night, I asked her again, this time without hesitation, without letting her escape behind her silence. "Just tell me everything," I said, my voice trembling. "If you don't, this will break us both." For the first time, she didn't look away. Her eyes filled with tears as she admitted the secret she had been carrying all along. The person I saw her with at the cafe wasn't a stranger. It was someone from her past. A connection she never thought would resurface, someone who had returned at the very moment she had said yes to me. She had agreed to be with me, she said, because she truly cared, but she hadn't been ready to tell me that her heart was still tied to unfinished chapters she had been afraid to face. Hearing her say this felt like the ground slipping beneath my feet. My world did collapse, just as I had feared. The yes that once meant everything now carried the weight of uncertainty and half-truths. I wanted to be angry, but the look on her face held something deeper than betrayal. It was conflict, pain, and an honesty she had finally stopped running from. The climax wasn't in her confession alone, but in the choice I had to make. Do I hold on, knowing her yes was clouded with doubt, or do I let go of the only person I had ever truly loved? As the rain hammered against the windows that night, she whispered, "I said yes because I didn't want to lose you, but I'm scared I've already lost myself." And just when I thought the storm between us had cleared, the final twist came. She admitted that the person from her past wasn't there to pull her away. It was someone who had come to remind her of a promise she once made, a promise she now had to keep. It wasn't another love, but a responsibility she had hidden out of fear that I would walk away if I knew. The truth left me stunned. The yes was real, but it was tied to a path that would test everything between us. I realized then that our story wasn't ending. It was only changing. And as much as my world had collapsed, it was also being rebuilt into something neither of us had ever expected. The night her secret finally came out changed everything between us. The tension that had been hanging like a shadow finally broke, leaving only raw honesty in its place. She explained what she had been hiding, how the person I saw wasn't a rival in love, but a reminder of a duty she had been carrying for years. It wasn't about choosing between me and someone else. It was about facing a responsibility she had avoided sharing because she feared I wouldn't understand. For the first time, her words felt real, without hesitation, without the careful masks she had worn for so long. It hurt to know she had doubted me, but at the same time, I finally understood the weight she had been carrying. The strange silences, the nervous glances, the distance. It wasn't about a lack of love. It was about fear. Fear of losing me if she told me the truth. Fear of being judged. Fear of standing alone if I decided her secret was too much to handle. As we sat together that night, the rain slowing outside, I realized love isn't just about the easy moments, the laughter, or even the perfect yes. It's about standing in the mess of reality, in the broken places, and choosing to stay anyway. Her yes might have been complicated, but it was still hers, and it still meant she wanted me by her side. The conflicts that had pulled us apart now became the reason we had to fight harder. She no longer kept her world hidden, and I no longer asked questions with fear. We began to rebuild, not on illusions, but on truth. And though the journey ahead looked uncertain, it felt stronger than the one I had dreamed up in my head. Looking back, I understand why my world felt like it had collapsed the moment she said yes. It wasn't because love had failed, but because it had forced me to face the reality behind the fantasy. Real love is not about perfect answers, but about imperfect truths. That's the story I carry now, the story of how one simple word turned my life upside down and taught me that sometimes the collapse is what makes room for something real to grow.